Hey YouTubers, welcome back to the bar channel. We're either building it, assembling it, repairing it, or just replacing it. What I'm continuing to work on today is the part 2 of this 900-gallon patio koi pond. Once I've got the outside framing built, I parked that aside on a dolly and I just started pressure washing this patio to get all the dirt, grime, debris off, and I'm gonna have the walls painted. Um, Painting the walls, I'm not gonna show you about painting the walls. It's just paint on the wall. Everybody knows how to paint a wall, but we're gonna get this patio all cleaned up because once this pond goes in place, it's going not going to be able to move. It's gonna be heavy. So I'm getting this patio all cleaned up and painted. As you can see, the back walls now of the patio is already painted. And what I'm doing now is I'm reinforcing the bottom frame of this pond. So I've got some angle brackets from the local hardware store to tie these 2x4s to the bottom to provide support for the plywood that's going to be sitting on the base. So there it is. I'm getting it screwed in. I've got it spaced out a certain distance, and that helps me hold it in. This is going to be sitting flat on the floor. I may put it up on some 12 by 12 blocks, but I wanted that extra support because all the weight will be in the bottom. So as you can see right there, I'm going screwing them in with these plates. There was a shortage of brackets and plates, so whatever I could find, I grabbed at the store. The pandemic created a shortage in supplies. If you recall on my previous video, I was building this patio koi pond on the fly. No blueprints, nothing, just right out of my head as I'm going and planning and building. So you want to make sure you examine your base thoroughly to make sure you put appropriate support for the base. So I went and looked at it and I said, okay, I need to support my base, my plywood, with 2x4 in the extreme edges. Once I got those two by 4 in the extreme edges, I started planning my rest of my 2x4s going down to the center. I couldn't get it exactly to the aligned to the other 2x4s because I wanted to have the space to screw the brackets in. So it's a little bit off centered from the other 2x4s, but it's to create the space to put those brackets in. And as you can see, the brackets are different because that's all I had at the time when I was doing this build. And these brackets are basically to hold the side 2x4 to the base 2x4 together, so you don't need a lot of screws because it's going to be sitting flat on the ground, as I mentioned. Now once I got the base of my 2x4 screwed in, I went ahead and started cutting up the plywood that I needed. So I measured from the base up, subtracting the thickness of the plywood that's going to be in the base, and that would be my cut height. So I went ahead and cut the sides for all four. If you recall, the way I planned this out was going to be minimum wastage of materials. So in the side walls, I'll have two pieces of plywood versus a full sheet or a full section. And the side walls will be a full section minus the extra pieces that I cut out. As you can see here, I clamped a straight edge and straight pieces of wood from one end of the sheet of the plywood to the other end. That way I'm getting a nice straight cut instead of trying to do it free-handed. So I made sure it's uh, clamped straight, the plywood is straight. I kind of got a line drawn. That way I can stay on track, because if not, you can start shifting off to the side, but trying to hold the saw to the edge of that straight edge makes it work. Now once I've got all my material cut to length and width, I'm gonna go ahead and start assembling this tank. So I tipped it over on the base, I dropped it to the ground. Later on I'm gonna get someone to help me put it in place. So what I'm doing now is getting that sheet of plywood smack in the middle, and a full sheet is gonna fit in there without cutting. So I'm gonna get that dropped in. I'm gonna just square it up, climb in, and just step on it to make sure it fits properly, because it's a nice tight fit. Once I got that fitted into place, I went ahead and got some screws, and I start screwing it down the plywood sheet to the studs I put in the bottom. So I'm going to get all that screwed in, and once I screw that in, I'm going to move on to the walls. So let me get this all screwed up for you. Now that I've got the base screwed in, let me get this sidewall all screwed in, which was already pre-cut. I did all my cutting, so I'm gonna get that screwed in. It's a little rough with being a one-man show, trying to record and handling big sheets of plywood, but it was something that was manageable. So just want to make sure that I get all my plywood, they're fitting perfect before I start screwing stuff in. So looks like my plywoods are good. They're all fitting in perfect. So I'm going to start screwing the plywoods in on the sidewall. So let me just get all these sidewall, both sides, screwed in. Now you want to be careful when you're using this long screwdriver tip, because it's a little bit loose and worn. It kind of slipped off and caught my finger, so the tip of the bit itself caught my finger. So I'm gonna go get that washed off, um, get all the blood out of it, and drive on. Kids coming in being all excited about this build, being all happy, um, then went about their way. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and work on the short wall. Remember what I said, there was no wastage, so I cut all the excess plywood that I have. I worked it in two pieces and made it fit. Remember, it's just a supporting wall, so the next part of this project will be to get the foam insulation in before the liner. So I'm getting this sidewall screwed in, and then I'm gonna work on the other side wall. Now that I've got this side done, I'll go ahead and get the other side in. Once I get the other side in, then I will start to work on the foam insulation and the liner. That will be coming up in part 3 of this video. um, I still have to get the filter built, and I have to get the outside walls covered once the liner is in. So look out for future parts for this patio koi pond build. The title says 900 gallons, but with the filter system I'm going to use, that's going to add another 100 gallons. So you're figuring it's roughly 1,000 gallon um, koi pond. So that should be good enough to house my kois once I get the big main pond build, which will be, I think, based on my calculation, about a 4,000 gallon in-ground uh, koi pond. This will be in my patio pool deck. So keep an eye out, look out for future videos, and watch, share, like, subscribe, comment, ask questions. There's not too much details as far as measurement, because it's being built on the fly, and sometimes your materials are off, so it will throw you off a little bit. um, you also have to account for shrinkage on the pressure treated stuff, because if it's wet when you use it or cut it and you assemble it, it will shrink a little bit. But the inside is done, and it's time for the next step. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.